Guilt is not a feeling that politely waits in the background of the mind. It is a parasite. It infects, it consumes. And when that guilt is earned, the direct result of knowingly inflicting pain on another human being, it swells into something utterly unmanageable. They truly believe they can outrun their own actions. They assume time will bury the truth. They keep themselves perpetually distracted, surrounding their lives with noise, fake laughter, and temporary highs, hoping the weight of their choices will simply dissolve. But this is not how the universe works. What they fail to realize is that guilt is a mirror they cannot smash. It follows them into every silent moment, into the stillness between conversations, and into the dark nights where they lie awake, heart racing, not from a fear of the dark, but from the truth they can no longer suppress. The breakdown begins internally, psychically, emotionally, spiritually. They are now being dismantled in the same calculated way they once dismantled you. You gave them your vulnerability, your trust, and your loyalty, and they used it as a weapon. This wasn't accidental. It was a calculated action. They betrayed you because they thought they could escape the consequences. They thought you would tolerate their behavior forever. They didn't believe you would ever wake up, but you did wake up, not with vengeance or justifiable anger, but with clarity, self-respect, and distance. You saw them as they truly were, small, cowardly, and manipulative. You walked away, and that decision haunted them far more than your pain ever could. They expected you to stay broken, to chase them, to shrink. Instead, you went silent, focused on your healing, and rebuilt your life. They now sit alone, not just physically, but in their own souls. Here is the spiritual reality. When someone deeply wounds a loyal, genuine, and kind person, the universal order doesn't allow that imbalance to stand. Guilt becomes the undeniable messenger of consequence. And it doesn't whisper, it screams. They replay every conversation, every lie, every moment of cruelty. They see your face in their best moments and feel nothing but paralyzing shame. That is the price of moral failure. They are now living in a psychological prison of their own making, and the sentence is proving far longer than they ever imagined. The pain they inflicted upon you was temporary. It forced growth, but the guilt they now feel is permanent. It cripples. They are scrolling through life trying to find replacements and new validation, but there is always a hollow void. No matter how much they try to project happiness, deep down they are haunted. Guilt changes people. It warps their internal reflection. They can't even look themselves in the eye anymore because they know the truth. They had something real, something pure, and they actively destroyed it. This is the true justice, not revenge, but watching the weight of their own actions crush them from the inside out, watching them pretend to be whole while everything in their spirit is fragmented. Guilt turns their own mind into a relentless courtroom where the sentence never ends. But you are fundamentally different. You didn't run from the pain. You faced it. You grew stronger from it. You built yourself with bricks forged in suffering and self. That is why you are free, and they are not. That is why you can breathe deeply, and they suffocate in their relentless silence. Do not underestimate the silent power of a guilty conscience. The mask they wear is cracking. Their laughter is hollow. Their confidence is pure performance. The guilt is there invisible, but utterly merciless. It doesn't let them rest. It claws at them in the quiet. It mocks them when they try to move on. It punishes them every time they remember who you were and what they destroy. Guilt is not merely about regret. It is a reckoning. It is the mind's way of saying your actions do not align with who you pretend to be. It holds up that unavoidable mirror, forcing them to confront the hypocrisy and the ugliness of what they did. And because they intentionally hurt someone genuine and undeserving, that mirror becomes unbearable. But they cannot look away. That is the true weight. They thought they could bury what they did. They thought that if enough time passed, the memories would fade. But the more they try to silence it, the louder it becomes. The more they avoid it, the more powerful it grows. Because guilt feeds on denial. They thought their actions would be forgotten, that you would be a skipped chapter, but you became the chapter they can't stop rereading. Not because you haunt them, but because their own conscience does. That small voice they've tried to ignore is louder now. It reminds them they do not deserve peace. You don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to say a word. Guilt is doing the work for you, quietly, relentlessly. They may look fine, but beneath that surface is a soul that is cracking, a heart that is heavy, and a mind that is restless. Guilt is the punishment they carry, and it is far worse than anything you could have delivered. The initial pain they caused you was sharp and felt endless, but it led to transformation. It forced you to build strength, wisdom, and clarity. That growth becomes part of your core character, and it doesn't fade. But their suffering is the kind they tried to avoid. Guilt creeps in through small cracks. They begin to feel it in the stillness between distractions. They hear your voice, not because you're haunting them, but because their own guilt is echoing. They replay what they did, how much you were willing to sacrifice. And slowly the realization sets in. They destroyed something they didn't even understand. That is where their torment truly begins. And that is a punishment they cannot escape. Guided by the unwavering justice of God, you are free, and they are not. You have faced the truth and found freedom. Now that we understand the psychological consequences of their actions, let's turn back to your power. Would you like to explore how to set and enforce your boundaries using strategic silence to ensure this kind of chaos never returns to your life? Unlike your pain, which had a defined path forward toward transformation, their guilt has nowhere to go, because to truly escape it, they would need to take full radical accountability. And people who operate from such deep insecurity rarely possess that capacity. So instead, they carry it quietly. It doesn't evolve into wisdom. It festers and rots into regret. Every frantic attempt to distract themselves, to pretend their actions didn't happen, only serves to deepen the wound. When you hurt someone genuine and lose them because of your own choices, you don't just lose a person, you lose a crucial piece of your own integrity. And integrity is not replaceable. Once corrupted, guilt moves in and takes permanent residence. What makes their suffering permanent is not external punishment. It is the sentence they impose upon themselves internally. They no longer trust their own moral compass. They feel a subtle, constant self-disgust, a profound heaviness they cannot shake, because they know they weren't manipulated or deceived. They were loved completely, and they willingly shattered it. Tainted connections. Now, every new connection they make is inherently tainted. When someone shows them affection, the memory of your sincere loyalty rushes back. Instead of peace, they feel the sting of guilt. Instead of joy, they feel undeserving. Their relationships suffer, not because the new people are wrong, but because the guilty one is no longer whole where it matters most. Identity erosion. Guilt doesn't strike instantly. It waits. It allows them to move forward just enough to believe they've outrun it. Then it strikes, damaging their very sense of identity. They begin to doubt their worth and their future because, deep down, they know they were the villain in a loyal person's story. You, on the other hand, grew stronger. You learned to protect your energy and rebuilt yourself without needing closure from them. Your pain passed because you didn't avoid it. You transformed through it. They merely buried, suppressed, and pretended. That is why their guilt is permanent. It is not teaching them. It is punishing them. It is making them hollow. It steals their sleep, their peace, and there is no timeline for that. Only the weight of what they did. They thought your silence was weakness. They mistook your composure for confusion. They underestimated what true silence means, the silence of someone deeply wounded who has made a decision. When someone who once pleaded to be understood, who once cried out in pain, goes quiet, that silence becomes deafening, not to you, but to them. The power drain. Your silence forced them to sit with themselves. They relied on chaos and emotional reaction to feel powerful. They thrived when you were screaming or begging, when you stopped reacting, when you stepped out of the emotional war zone and went stilly, took all their power with you. They are no longer being begged for, watched, or needed. They are simply alone with their choices. The brutal mirror. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects everything back at them without the noise or excuses. It shows them who they really are and how little they ultimately mattered to someone they thought they had under their thumb. Your composure became their torment. They can't tell themselves you were crazy or weak because your dignified silence proves the opposite. Your absence is proof of your immense strength. Your silence isn't just the end of communication. It's the beginning of consequence. They are left alone with the memory of the loyal person they discarded, now thriving without them. That is devastating because your quiet strength is their loudest defeat. The truth is etched into their conscience. It doesn't matter how many new distractions they chase. When they are alone, the silence speaks again. And this time, it doesn't just remind them that you are gone. It reminds them that they pushed you away willingly until you had no choice but to let go completely. Letting go didn't mean revenge. It meant choosing yourself, choosing peace, and choosing to stop giving to someone who only knew how to take. That silently made decision stripped them of the one thing they needed to feel powerful, your emotional investment. What they feel now is not just regret. It is fear. Fear that you finally saw them for who they are. Fear that they have been exposed, not publicly, but to themselves. Because your silence screams, I know the truth now. Karma doesn't always arrive as thunder. Sometimes it moves quietly, slipping in through the cracks of the human psyche. The most brutal form it takes is guilt, that unshakable, internal tormenting awareness of wrongdoing. It sets up camp where it hurts the most, within, in the silence, in the empty spaces they used to fill with your presence. You are free. They are imprisoned by the guilt that rots their integrity and steals their peace. They are crippled by what they did, even if no one else sees it. Because for those who hurt others intentionally, God's balance is inescapable. What they inflicted upon you may have felt like a minor disturbance to them at the time. They lied. They manipulated. They betrayed. They twisted the truth, made you question your reality, and exploited your genuine love. In their minds, they achieved a perfect escape. You were left hurting, and they were free. You were shattered, and they moved on quickly, easily, without a single apology. That illusion of victory made them feel powerful, superior, untouchable. But that power was built on a lie, and lies are inherently fragile. Over time, the truth always begins to crack through the surface, because the truth inevitably returns, not just in the external world, but in the internal world of the soul. Their conscience may have been buried, but it was not dead. It was dormant, waiting dot, and once you removed yourself completely, once you went silent, walked away, and refused to play their game, that's when consequence began. It's quiet work. That's when guilt moved in. Slowly. At first, just a whisper of discomfort. But over time, it grows. It multiplies. It becomes a relentless storm inside them. They smile less now. Not because their external life is suddenly difficult, but because genuine joy doesn't feel real anymore. It's all performance. Their laughter sounds hollow, even to their own ears. They try to convince the world and themselves that they are fine, that their actions were justified, that they carry no regret. But guilt doesn't listen to surface-level justifications. Guilt lives deeper than that. It knows when someone has fundamentally violated their own moral compass. It doesn't require anyone else's judgment. It is its own courtroom, its own judge, its own jury. And the sentence is agonizingly long. The slow ache. Guilt doesn't attack all at once. It's slow, a constant ache, a quiet reminder in moments they least expect it, a random melody, a familiar scent, a small memory. That is all it takes to bring rushing back the full realization of what they did, of what they lost, and what they chose to destroy. The internal corrosion. It doesn't matter who they are with now or how successful they appear. That guilt is a part of them, and it's growing because they didn't just hurt you. They severely damaged something within themselves. This is the central truth. People like them never understand until it's too late. When you betray someone who loved you honestly, you don't merely break their heart, you fracture your own character. You corrode the part of you that was capable of growth and self-improvement. And instead of evolving, you fall into a darker, avoidance-driven version of yourself. And you require no revenge. You don't need to see them fall, or beg, or suffer outwardly, because you've already won. You survived the damage. You rebuilt. You grew into someone stronger, wiser, and more. Their actions forced you to level up, but their own actions trapped them. You didn't avoid your pain. You transformed through it. They avoided accountability. Therefore, their guilt is permanent. It is not teaching them. It is punishing them. It is making them hollow now. Consequence has done its job, not loudly, but with devastating precision. Every time they think about you, they do think about you. It's not with peace. It's with shame, with regret, with the bitter knowledge that they lost something irreplaceable. They try to fill that void, but nothing works, because that emptiness isn't about losing you. It's about losing the version of themselves that was capable of being truly loved by someone. Genuine. This is why guilt is such an effective form of consequence. It doesn't just torment, it truly transforms them into a stranger to themselves. They look in the mirror and see a person they don't fully respect anymore. They know deep down they've failed. Don't let them wear the mask. Let them smile in public. None of it touches the guilt. None of it silences what they feel when they are finally alone. Consequence did not destroy them in a dramatic blade. It is slowly unraveling them from the inside. And that unraveling is far more brutal than anything you could have orchestrated, because it's personal, it's endless, and it is entirely self-imposed. You have secured your freedom and your integrity. Now that you understand the full psychological effect of your actions, let's explore how to set and enforce your boundaries using strategic silence to ensure this kind of chaos never returns to your life.